Not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit, says the Lord of hosts. Zechariah 4, verse 6. Welcome to Martial Arts Past and Present with Sensei Ed Briz. Interviews and discussions with martial artists from around the world, along with tournament perspectives.
Welcome to another show of Martial Arts Past and Present. I am Sensei Ed Briz. I would like to introduce our guest. Mr. Gillespie is from Sarasota, Florida. He's a third Dan, and I met him about a year ago. He's a great guy, and he knows his martial arts. Mr. Gillespie, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me, Sensei Briz. Appreciate it. Glad to be on here.
Glad to have you here. Hey, listen, for the rest of the podcast, is it okay to call you by your first name?
Absolutely. Yeah, I just go by Mike. That's fantastic for me. Yep.
That's great. Thanks, Mike. And of course, you know, I'm Ed. So
Great.
were you involved in any sports before martial arts?
I was, I played soccer in elementary school. And that was my main sport that I was actually okay at. I'll tell you, fast forward, spoiler alert a little bit, into high school when I was still playing soccer in high school. One of the things that my coaches really did not appreciate was when I tried to use martial arts kicks during a soccer game.
I can see that being a problem.
Yeah. Sometimes, the muscle memory just, kicked in, but it's not very effective on the soccer field. But yeah, I played soccer a little bit before I got started in martial arts. And then I also ran cross country, mostly to get in shape for martial arts.
So what happened that the coach didn't like it? Were you kicking the ball or the other participants?
Trying to kick the ball, but it's much better to do like a chest trap than a roundhouse kick on the soccer field.
Okay.
Much more effective. You want to control the ball.
All right. I never played soccer, so I don't know. I mean, I've seen games, but I've never actually played. So, well, what brought you to decide that you wanted to go for the martial arts?
Well, I wanted to, I don't even know, ever since I was a kid, maybe it was movies, television shows, I always found them fascinating, right? And then, The Karate Kid, honestly, was probably one of the major movies that really, pushed me over the edge a bit. But I remember as a kid, mentioning it to my parents and just not really being taken seriously. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever, I'll just kind of do what's in front of me. And then at some point in seventh grade, I was 11, I decided I really wanted to try martial arts. And so I brought it up again and was insistent or persistent enough that my parents were able to enroll me and get me started. And I kept going.
Wow. What year was it that you started?
Do you
remember that
I had
far
a
back?
heads up. I could have done the math ahead of time on this one, but yeah. So I was 11. I'm 48 now. Oh goodness, it would have been. I'm going to go with late 80s, and I'll let our audience do the math if they want, because
Okay.
I can't tell the exact year. I'm going to go late 80s, when I was 11. Yeah.
Okay. What challenges did you face when you started, and whatever they were, how did you overcome them?
Right. So, okay, my favorite challenge and expression in starting the martial arts is this concept called the blue belt blues. And this is a phrase that, as far as I know, was coined by my first master instructor, Jim Graydon. That's who I heard it from. He said, when people get to be about the rank of blue belt, they start to see what things are supposed to look like and how it really works. In the black belts, they know enough to know and to be able to see that they're really not quite doing it yet. Because when you start out, as a white belt, as a yellow belt, green belt, even, it's also new and you're starting from nothing. And so all you see is the rapid rate of improvement, right? But then once you kind of get around that blue belt phase, you can start to see a little bit more how it's supposed to be, and you can more clearly recognize your shortcomings. And so a lot of people would stop training around that point because they would get discouraged. And so I would say that was the challenge point, was to really push through that intermediate belt phase to really start making progress toward the advanced ranks.
So you didn't get that near the beginning like a lot of other people do. I mean, a lot of students that I've had in the past, they want to be Ninja Turtles, and I've talked about this on previous podcasts. Um, they want to be Ninja Turtles or they want to be Power Rangers or something like that. Then what happens
Right.
is that they find out it's a lot of work. So you didn't have that at the beginning, huh?
No, not at the beginning. The beginning was just fun. I mean, just learning the basics was a vast improvement over what I was able to do before I walked in. And so, no, I didn't really experience it till more until blue belt. But then the other thing I want to mention, though, your question kind of sparked something that I think is really at the core of a lot of martial arts, which is that a lot of people start thinking that the goal is to become a black belt, that is some
Hmm.
end goal, end destination, which is just not a healthy mentality, right? And in a way, earning the black belt, becoming a black belt is really just the start of a journey, but really it's the whole thing is a journey. And so I think another challenge a lot of people have, and a problem a lot of schools have, is that once people get their black belt, then they quit. Okay, I'm a black belt, check the box. I am going to carry this with me for the rest of my life because I have become a black belt. No, no, it's just the beginning. Now you've mastered all the basics, and so now you can continue on the journey.
Absolutely. I've seen it many times. I've only brought so many people to black belt, because in my system, it takes 7 years.
Oh, great.
So
Good, good.
yeah, and minimum of 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on the student, it could take longer.
Mm-hmm.
But I've seen them, they get the black belt, they want to quit. Some of
Right.
them might get the second, but they never go for third because they're gone by that time.
Right.
Um, and it just one thing leads to another, and they just disappear. And then I never hear from them ever again, or I might see them in Walmart or something like that, and,
Right.
and they're
Right.
like, "Oh, hi, how are you?" And it's like, "Good, how are you?" You know.
Yeah. Right. Right.
But I also find that what happens with these people is that when they quit, even the kids, a lot of times, whether the kids or adults, a lot of times what happens is they end up quitting a lot of things in their life
Mm,
because they quit martial arts. They quit
right.
a lot of things. As soon as something gets a little difficult, they run.
Right. Right. Well, and I think that's one of the. You might want to touch on this later, but if I can just jump ahead a little bit, that's one of the things that the martial arts has really taught me is to be able to persist through when it's difficult and to persist longer than I thought I could for a goal that was, maybe even, higher than I thought I could attain. That lesson really applied later on in life and allowed me to pursue things that I never would have thought I could do before.
Right. It's true. And, like you said, you started what, 11 years old?
Right.
That's a long time.
Mm-hmm.
It's a
Mm-hmm.
long time.
Right.
And many things happened throughout those years. Okay. You may have touched on this part already, but how has martial arts training shaped your mental resilience, and or discipline?
Yeah. So that kind of goes really nicely with what we were just talking about. So the ability to persist toward a goal, even and especially when it's hard, is something that really that was crucial. So for me, it only took me about 4 years to earn my black belt, my first degree. But that taught me that I could stick with something that long. Because it was
Mm.
the biggest commitment I had made at that point. I mean, I was an 11-year-old kid, and then I was like 14, 15, something by the time I got my first degree. Um, and then, so what that taught me is that later on, when I was in college, I could actually pursue a PhD in something that was interesting to me because I'd already taken on a commitment that took 4 years, and I knew a PhD would be 4, 5, 6 years. And I thought, okay, well, I've done this before, and so I can do it again. And so it gave me that confidence and the mental discipline to push through toward a long-term difficult goal like that. And it's interesting because obviously the martial arts, people think of it as being more physical. There's a heavy mental component too, right? And
Oh
so,
yeah.
yeah, right. And so the mental discipline and the intellectual development was not foreign in pursuing a PhD. It was kind of a natural extension of what I had already done before.
Right. Yeah, I feel that the mental part is probably 85%.
Sure.
of
Yes.
the martial arts.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's another reason why people take off so fast, is because that mental part, they don't understand it and they don't know how to deal with it and they don't want to learn,
Right. Right.
you know. Um, we just touched on this a minute ago. What other benefits do you feel people get from learning martial arts?
Well, one thing that hasn't come up yet, and I see this as hugely beneficial um, for kids mostly, but I mean adults sure as well, but just the discipline, the respect. I think it's easy, especially nowadays. It seems, I don't know if I'm just making that up, but it seems nowadays it's easy for kids to not learn respect and discipline. The instant gratification is so enticing and appealing. But to learn to have that respect for the art and for the master instructor and instructors and your seniors and the people that you can learn from, I think is just huge. And you see people come in who don't know how to say yes, sir, yes, ma'am, don't know how to look somebody in the eye, don't know how to push through and do something that they don't feel like doing. And they learn how to do that through the course, through the classes, through the program, through going through the ranks. And it really just helps them be a better person that can then take on the next challenges that they'll encounter in life.
That's a perfect introduction to this. How have people lost respect for the martial arts? And why do you think that is?
Oh, I mean, that's a tough one. So I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth on this one. First, I just want to say the reason I'm not a school owner is because I don't want to take on the full financial and social responsibility of running a school. That's tough. I love training. I love teaching people. I love helping and challenging students, but I don't want that full responsibility, right? So that's talking out of one side of my mouth. But then out of the other hand, one of the challenges that we have that I think allows people to lose respect for the martial arts is we do have a lot of schools that are just black belt mills, and they bring people in with the promise and contract of earning a black belt, and that is the goal. And then of course they dole out the black belts because they don't want to turn people down, they don't want to turn people away, and it waters down the curriculum, and it creates undisciplined students that think that they can defend themselves, think that they have skills, but they haven't actually developed all that much. And so it feeds into this sense of entitlement, and not having to truly earn something. And so that's a challenge that I see. And so again, I am not taking on that burden, that financial responsibility and obligation of running a school. And so, I don't really have the license to say that. But I do see that as a challenge. And I think that it's partly the times. I think with instant gratification, I mean, try to tell a kid it's going to take them 7 years to earn a black belt. That's a hard sell, right? I mean, it's not exciting enough right then and there. It's like, what's in it for me now?
Right.
And so it's tough out there. Yeah.
Yeah, I know I had 60, 70 students in my school at one time, and they were all about, and the ones that didn't leave, they were all about, I'm going to get my black belt, then I'm good.
Right.
Really? That's it? That's
Yeah.
as far as you want to go? That's the beginning of your foundation when you get
Right.
the black belt. Now you're a student of the martial arts, but people don't understand that, and they just want their black belt. They think they've achieved what they wanted to achieve, and they're gone, and then they never practice it ever again. So they have no idea what they're doing.
Right. I mean, the thing that I think can kind of, bridge these gaps here is just the mentality of a gym rat, a dojo rat. You just show up and grind and play, and it just make it a place that the people want to come and train hard at. I went to a school. I've done a bunch of different styles. I've gone to a bunch of different schools over the years that we can get into if there's interest. But one of them that I went to was an excellent school. I went in, and I was just kind of asking some questions about their program. I was already a black belt in at least one or two styles by then, and I was just looking for a place to train. And the curriculum looked good, the program, the plan, it all looked good. The people I was working with seemed okay. Um, and I was asking, so when can I just come in and train in the studio here? And they're like, oh, no, 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 no. You do that at home. Like, we're a teaching school. You train, you practice at home. And I'm thinking, oh, well, that's not what I'm looking for.
All
I
right.
want to train, I want to practice. I don't actually need you to teach me. It's funny. It is, I don't know, proud as that might sound, that's not what I was going for. I wanted a place that I could call home where I could just go train. And so I ended up switching completely and going into Kung Fu, which was
Hmm.
totally different than anything I'd ever done before because that was a legitimate training studio where people just showed up and they trained hard, and they put in the work. And I didn't last long there because of life circumstances, but it was very rewarding.
Well, a lot of schools, if you walk into a lot of these schools and the instructor turns around and you say that to them, they want that you want a place to work out in, and I don't really need instruction, they take offense to that big time.
A hundred
I've
percent.
I've seen them.
Yes. And I
Uh,
did not say I don't need instruction. I mean, I'm not that proud, but that in my mind, I was like, I had already gone through their curriculum. It was, I don't want to call it canned, but it went hand in hand with the, curriculum I already gone through. But yeah, that's, yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
yeah, they'll take offense to that
Yeah,
just
for
a
sure.
little bit.
For sure. For sure. Uh,
But I've also seen instructors that won't interact with any other schools because what the real thing is, they're afraid that they're going to lose students if they think that if they think that they like it better.
hmm
Me, I've always done it to where I've interacted with all the schools that would interact with us, whether it was Taekwondo or whatever it might have been. Uh, I would bring my students to their schools and do seminars, have them do seminars, or I would do a seminar or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And it was fun because there's things that I'm not going to teach my students that
Right.
they're never going to learn if they don't see other styles.
Right. Right.
I think it's a good thing, but there's a lot of instructors out there that they won't allow it.
Right. Right.
Like I used to go to this other school all the time. Well, actually, I can't say all the time. I would bring my students once a month to spar there.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and he turned around when I had a small place at the time. I only had about 12, 15 students, and I was in 1,000 square foot area, so I really didn't have that much room to have
Right.
them over by us. But when I got a bigger place, when I got my 3, 4,000 square foot place, and I invited them to come up, nope, wouldn't do it.
Oh,
They
that's
wouldn't
too
do it.
bad. That's too
Yeah.
bad. Yeah.
What benefits do you feel people get from learning martial arts?
It's a mental and physical discipline that generalizes well beyond the martial arts. And so, people see it and they think about it just being punching and kicking and maybe going through some forms and whatnot. But I don't know, that's kind of just one content application, I would say, of the martial arts. And so, the mental and physical discipline that one develops through practicing martial arts can be applied in almost any domain in life. I mentioned, for me, that transfer was from the martial arts to a PhD, and I'm an organizational psychologist. That's what I do.
Hmm.
And so my martial arts discipline and practice allowed me, and the intellectual humility is part of it too. It allowed me to really just do what I needed to do to get that PhD and keep practicing. And when I have challenges now in my life, it's like, okay, what do I need to be doing in terms of the regular practice, the process, the day-to-day behaviors that are going to get me to maybe eventually the outcomes I'm thinking of, but stop thinking about the outcomes. Stop thinking about, earning that black belt. Just focus on the process of showing up, putting in the work, putting in the training, the mental discipline, and then that will eventually, lead you to maybe some desirable outcomes. But the outcomes are the imposter. It's really the process and the practice that is what we want to foster. And so I think that mentality can really apply well outside of the martial arts.
Life lessons. Here's an example. The Bible has every page is loaded with life lessons, which
Right.
basically means you learn it and you use it in your life for as long as you're alive.
Yes.
Uh, do you feel martial arts has a lot of life lessons?
Absolutely. And so, for example, right now I'm practicing Taekwondo. That's one of my arts. And so the basic tenets of Taekwondo, courtesy, integrity, perseverance, self-respect, and indomitable spirit. I mean, those apply quite well in life. And so 100% applicable. And so if something's not going right, well, maybe, check yourself against the Bible verses, check yourself against the core tenets of what you're training in, and where can you improve there? And again, surrendering the outcomes and just putting in the work.
All right. We've seen and heard the commercialization of the martial arts throughout the years. What's your take on on that, the commercialization of martial arts, like as we just talked about, like belt factories and mega gyms?
I don't think commercialization of it is necessarily a problem. I think it's the mentality that is encouraged or reinforced in the studio itself. And so, for example, if I were to open up my own school, one of the things that would be hard for me is what's my curriculum going to be? I mean, I could draw from a karate curriculum, Tang Sudo, Hapkido, Taekwondo. Those are my backgrounds. But if I'm going to knit together a coherent curriculum and bring all the students through for that, through a curriculum, what is it going to be? What am I going to pick? Am I going to design it from scratch? I could. That's a lot of work. I could also buy a curriculum off the shelf, so to speak, which in a way sounds horrible, but there are good programs out there. And then okay, so if I'm going to do Taekwondo, if I'm going to do, WT, WTF, ITF, if I'm going to do karate and do a particular model, I could actually take a curriculum that is largely published already and I can tweak it, for my needs and I can put my students through it. And then I have a program that I can put people through and I'm training them, I'm teaching them, I'm showing them how to punch and kick, I'm showing them, the discipline of it. And so I think there's some aspects of commercialization that can be useful. Um, I think, you know, a successful school owner, if they can do this for a profit, good for them.
That's what to do.
Yeah, yeah, it is hard to do. That's the thing. That's really hard to do. But I think we just have to keep in mind what we are actually beholden to. Are we beholden to an art, or are we beholden to a profit, and are we watering down the art for the profit? And do that too much, too long, it ceases to be an appealing art anymore, and it does the
You
arts a
just
disservice then.
Yeah, you just opened up a whole thing that is like what I'd like to base the show on. There are a lot of people who have just who was it? Somebody just recently that I interviewed said, unless you can't make money in the martial arts as a school unless you sell out. And
Hmm.
that's basically what you just said, if I understood you correctly. And I agree. I agree. I mean, it's like the people end up just doing whatever they have to make the money.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
I think that I'm sorry to interrupt.
no, that's okay.
Okay, I think that element of it is a problem. I don't think it's true that you can't make money in the martial arts. So I have a great friend of mine, David Bybee. He runs a school about an hour north of me in Pinellas Park. He's a three-time world kickboxing champion. He puts out champions every year. He has a highly successful mixed martial arts practice, giant facility, hosts tournaments and events and stuff. And he's able to make money doing it. He has people invest in him because they believe in him. But he's in that gym grinding. He's put in the work. He puts in the work. He keeps showing up. He's disciplined, and it's a lot of work. But he's really good, and he's able to make money doing it, and he should.
Yeah, you see that's the difference. There are very few out there that can do that.
Right.
There,
Yes.
there's, I mean, you're talking 1% out of
That's
all
a
the
good
martial arts
estimate.
schools that are out there
Yeah.
that could do that. I mean,
Right.
they turn around, they just have that knack to do it, whether they do it through the hard work and advertising or whatever it might be.
Hmm.
Sure, it can be done, but for the most part, it's not.
Right. Right.
So most martial arts schools don't survive unless they have 50, 100 students to where they can pay the bills and still do this and still teach as close to traditionally as they possibly can. Of course, if we went overseas to where our styles originated from, and we said, "Oh yeah, I teach traditionally," they'd laugh at us,
Right. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
because it's not even close to traditionally.
Right. Right.
So yeah. Besides the styles you've already mentioned, are there any other styles that you've studied?
I mean, those are the main ones. I love the striking arts. I have people that try to get me into, to do Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It's uncomfortable for me. I'm not trying to do that. I've had both hips replaced. I'm not trying to get wrapped up and leveraged. It's just not my game. I do like some grappling, little hapkido, but um, my core. So I see myself as, and maybe in terms of who I could identify with in your list of your listeners and your audience. I just love to practice martial arts across the board. But in terms of stylistically, I'm a striker. I like karate, taekwondo, hapkido, tang sudo. Those have been my main arts.
Mm. And you see, that's another thing I've noticed. People who love it stay with it for their entire life, and they've had either a knee or a hip replacement.
Yeah, and one of you were kind enough to feed me some questions ahead of time, and I don't know where we are on that list, but one of the things that I noticed on there, one of the things that made me think of maybe it was a regret or a challenge in the martial arts, but to me is I really wish I hadn't stopped training. I stopped training for a bit in college, and it was really actually this was pride that led me to stop because I could not find a school that I thought was up to my standards to train at, and so I didn't train. And this went on for a number of years, and so I got out of shape. And then when I got back into shape, I just went right back to doing what I thought I could do again, and it was so hard on my body. I don't know. Maybe if I'd stayed with it, I wouldn't have needed the hip replacements. Maybe I would have needed them sooner. It's hard to tell, really. Um,
Probably sooner.
yeah, probably. But I wish I hadn't stopped. I wish I had just continued the practice anywhere I could have. I wish I would have just continued the practice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I've done the same thing. I've spoken about this in previous shows also. That I went for a while, took a few months off, went back, took a few months off, went back, took a year off, so on and so forth. I've talked about all of this,
Yeah,
and it happens. I mean, life gets in the way sometimes,
right, right.
but our desire to keep going brings us back to it.
That's right. That's right. Yep, yep.
And
Yeah, and
again,
I'll
like
tell you,
you,
I am my best version of myself when I'm training regularly.
yeah, and you feel
Right now
good, don't you?
I'm training at a local YMCA, and I'm loving it because it's
Oh,
it's just a place I can go and I can do my practice. And yeah, it's good for me.
yeah, it's true. Um, Okay, let's see. What's the most intense or transformative experience all these years of doing martial arts?
Hmm. I would say between my first and second dan in karate. I was in my late teens, and I was fortunate enough to have some excellent instruction and excellent training partners. There were about five of us that we just lived at the gym. We pushed each other hard. We trained 4 hours a day, which I thought was a lot at the time until you go to the international tournaments and you realize that the people who are really at the elite global level train 8 hours a day. But nevertheless, that was a huge transformational experience that laid the foundation for the martial arts that I am today. In terms of uh, the techniques, the hand and foot techniques, the stances, it all just feels very natural to me at this point because I went through that intense period of training practically every day for about 4 hours a day for 3, 4 years.
Hmm.
I would
Well, in
say
that
a
case,
particular belt test, but that really wasn't the point. My first degree, my first degree test. That wasn't really the point. That was just kind of a natural thing that, followed from the training. Same with the degree test, kind of a natural thing that just kind of followed from the training. Were they hard? Were they difficult? Yes, but really it was all about the training.
We talk about training, we talk about all these different things and all. Now, how about a story or something maybe happened to you that where you needed the martial arts outside of the dojo or the ring?
One of the reasons I got into the martial arts is I wanted to be able to defend myself in middle school. Um, and for a little bit, there was maybe one or two instances where I actually, used the martial arts kind of to try to defend myself in middle school, and that was fine enough. But I'll be honest, ever since then, one after I got my first black belt, the only time I've used my training is to break up fights. But
Hmm,
it gives me the
interesting.
confidence to recognize a situation that doesn't need to be happening. I mean, aggression outside the ring it doesn't help anybody. It's never good. And so it gives me the confidence to just walk up to people who could hurt me. It could be upset that I'm trying to break them up, and just calmly but confidently be like, "Yeah, you don't want to do this. You don't want to do
Hmm.
this. Just step aside. Well, what's the problem that we're having here?" And then everybody can go on with their life.
So you practice like I do, verbal judo.
Yes, yes,
Verbal
yes.
judo is great.
It
I
is.
mean, this way you use this instead of this.
That's right. That's right. And Tai Chi, I have found, is really good, has been really good for me. And push hands has been really good for me for like
Hmm.
understanding verbal confrontations and interpersonal dynamics. Because you don't want to necessarily just push against the pressure and butt heads. You want to intercept the flow and redirect. And there's a board game that I want to alert people to. If you haven't heard of it already, go. It's an ancient Asian board game, and it predates chess. It's black and white stones, and it's a wonderful game for strategy. And you have to accept the situation as it is and then adapt to it. And I find that really just kind of mirrors life quite well. And I don't
Hmm.
know what got me on this tangent, but to me, and as we're talking about like portability outside of the dojo, outside of the ring, it's these types of life lessons that I think are most useful.
That's great. What's one thing, unless you have more than one thing, but what's one thing you wish you knew before you started training in the martial arts?
One thing I wish I knew before I started training.
Did you remember back that far?
Yeah, yeah, right. I would guess that there's not a one right style or way. I think that a lot of times people get wrapped up in a particular style or discipline and they think it's, the right way to do it. No, that, it's better to have more intellectual humility. And there's something that we can learn from everyone. I was talking with a friend of mine, again, David Bybee, about this. He's extremely accomplished, and I was interviewing for him for my book, which at the time was about setting your ego aside. And he's like, "You want to talk to me about not having an ego?" And I'm like, "Yeah, what is it how is this applicable to you?" He's like, "Well, honestly," he's like, "there's something I can learn from everybody." And so I think we can apply that to the people that we encounter in our lives, but we can also apply it to the different disciplines. Like, do I think karate is the best, or a particular style of karate? No. Do I think a particular style of taekwondo is the best? No. I don't. I think that's about the practitioner. I think it's about what's going to work for you, and I think that there's something that we can learn from all of it.
What lessons from the past do you think are most relevant for the martial artists today?
Put in the work. I mean, again, it's just that put in the time on training. And I think a challenge that a lot of schools have now is the students only want to train or practice while they're in the studio. And
I've
so
noticed that.
yeah. And so it is just so important, just that regular practice. And for me now, that if I would be doing a lot better if I actually, stretched every day. We we both spent some time with Master Wallace,
Oh yeah.
the other weekend, and that's one of the things that he really impressed upon me is the importance of just stretching every day. The dude's 80 and he's had two hip replacements and he can still practically do a splits. I mean, what is my excuse? So yeah,
Good point.
putting in the practice every day, or even just not, even if it's not every day, don't just save it for the studio. Practice at home.
That's a good piece of advice for everybody. I try to tell my students all the time. Well, when I had students, now I just teach for nothing. If people want to learn, I don't charge anymore.
Oh wow, nice.
Yeah, I
Good
just
for them.
yeah, I'm retired at this point. Actually, I retired a few years back, and I just like to teach. I love to do it.
Yeah, yeah,
So when people see me wearing one of my shirts or something, they'll ask me about it. And if they want to learn, I teach them.
that's great.
I just because I didn't want all this that we had. When I was coming up the ranks, we would do this thing once a year for a whole weekend. It would start on a Friday night and then a Sunday afternoon. It was called I forgot what it was called, but we would go with seminars all weekend. And all these high-ranking black belts, you know, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th degree black belts would do these seminars, and they'd sit there and talk to you as a white belt. And that's unheard of.
Yeah.
Having a high-ranking black belt talk to a white belt or a yellow belt, and they would just sit down with you and talk with you. And I said to one of them one day, I said, you have so much knowledge. Why aren't you teaching? They said, I don't do it anymore. I said,
Huh.
why not? I said, you know, teach people. This is so great that you have all this knowledge. And I remember this one black belt saying to me, he goes to me, he goes, Ed, I got to tell you why. He goes, because I'm tired of all the garbage. I'm tired of the parents. I'm tired of the kids. I'm tired of the adults. He goes, I teach now at a YMCA. This tells you,
Yeah,
this tells you how long ago this was. I
yeah,
teach now at a YMCA for free once a week. And he goes, I love it because I love to teach. And I didn't understand it at that time. But now I am where I am. I'm doing the same thing. I
yeah,
just love to teach.
absolutely. And same with my master instructor right now, Master Chafin, Adriana Chafin, at the YMCA, and that she just teaches it there because she loves to teach it. And if she didn't, and if the YMCA didn't make her charge, I don't think that she would. It's one of the most accessible, affordable programs, in the area, and she's great. Yeah,
Right. Right. So that's what I do now. He said they charge and he comes in and does it for free. So he's helping them make money and he's just passing on his knowledge.
yeah,
I, I,
that's right.
I didn't, like I said, I didn't understand it then, but now I do. And I
Yeah,
appreciate it now.
yeah.
So yeah.
Well, that's one of the things that I first loved about it. And martial arts was my first actual job, funnily enough, working at a karate dojo. And I don't know, have you ever seen or used one of these cards? So someone comes in, they want to maybe take a free class or see what it's about, and they're like, "Why do you want to, start taking martial arts?" And list the various usual reasons. One of them on there, one of the options sometimes is, "I want to teach martial arts." And I always think, who shows up to their first class thinking that they want to take this so that they can teach it, right? I mean, I don't think anybody really does. But that's what really lit me up is working. Like I was a brown belt at the time, and working with the lower ranked students and kids and stuff. You Nowhere else have I found that you can really just see the learning happening. It's so directly observable. You can see the changes in techniques. You can see the eyes light up. You can see that aha moment. And I love that. And that's what led me to be a teacher, a professor today. Is because
Mhm.
now I get to be I want to do this. For my job, I want to teach people because I love seeing their eyes light up in that aha moment.
It is. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
I just enjoy it if they can learn a few things from my past, my mistakes, my successes. I'm happy.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So All right. I understand you wrote a book. I know it's not about
Ah,
martial arts, but it's been published with Penguin Publishing. Tell us about it.
yeah. So I guess maybe that's another life lesson and long-term goals. Because if I knew how long that was going to take, I'm not sure I would have signed up for it. But yeah, that took about 5 years to write. But I love it. I'm so excited about this book. It's called Distancing. And so my name is Michael Gillespie. If you can search on Amazon, Michael Gillespie Distancing, and it'll pop up. And I wrote it with this retired sub commander, Captain David Marquet, retired Captain David Marquet.
Wow.
And so it's the book is about at its core, I'll say it on this way on this podcast, getting your ego out of the way so that you can see the situation more clearly. I'm a psychologist. Ego is a messy construct. It's a messy thing. I'm not even sure it really exists, right? But you know what it is when I say it. And so it's like when people get too hung up on looking good or protecting their own, reputation or sense of identity, and they make bad decisions as a result. And so how can we basically get out of our own head? And so it's like if you know how you can see other people's problems way more clearly than your own.
Oh, easy.
Right? Yeah. I mean, it's so easy to see other people's problems and sometimes have some great solutions for them, right? Um, and so we can use these techniques of psychological distancing to get out of our own head. And so a simple example is, and I don't know if you journal. I journal sometimes, and so and some of the listeners probably or audience probably journals. If you switch from I'm trying to figure out what to do about this situation, or this happened and it really pissed me off, or I'm really nervous or anxious about this. If you notice, I'm using I. If you switch that to say, well, Mike's trying to figure out what to do in this situation, he, blah, blah, blah. There's linguistic tricks and tools like this and other methods where we can kind of pop out of our own head where we're no longer really the first, seeing things as a first person perspective on life. We see things more as a neutral observer, and it allows us to see the situation more clearly and it allows us to make better decisions. And there's a lot of examples in this from corporate America and leadership and military and aviation that we draw from in the book, and we give people tools so that they can basically get out of their own head and make better decisions.
I know I've seen. No, actually, I just said that because I wanted to prove your point to our
Right.
audience that we do it without even realizing we do it.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's our
Um,
default frame. It's our default perspective on life.
right. Right. In the Bible, it says, it says, take the speck out of your own eye before you try to take the log out of your own eye before you try to take the speck out of somebody else's.
Yes. Yes.
And it's kind of what you're saying. It coincides with what the Bible says about that.
Yes, absolutely. And the whole concept of like dying to self and living in Christ, for example, and even just like the popular adage or popular phrase, "What would Jesus do?" So you become somebody else. So you become coach, or you kind of mentally like, hey, well, what would Jesus do in this situation? It gets you out of your own head, and you can see the situation more clearly.
It's very true. It's very true. And until you realize it, you never know it.
Right,
You
right,
never
right, right.
know.
Yes. It's like a switch you can turn off and on, and we don't realize we have the power to turn that, to flip that switch, but we do.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for allowing me to interview you today. Would you come back in the future?
Yeah, sure thing. Sure thing. I'd
I'd
love
love to have
to.
you come back again.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Ed. This has been a lot of fun. Yeah, I just see myself as a bit of an everyday Joe, a martial artist on this. So hopefully that, can relate to some of the viewers. I'm no bigwig, but it's fun to be on here.
I'm glad because I like to have fun with this. I mean, I put this podcast out for a reason, which I've also mentioned before, is that I did this because I've seen so many things happen in the martial arts over the years that I just didn't like what was going on.
Yeah.
Uh, the way instructors are treating their students, the students are treating other people and their instructors, and
Hmm.
I figured let's go back to what it was like and talk to people that have been in the martial arts for a long time, and get their perspective. And
Ah,
that's why I do this. Hopefully, it'll get other people to realize how life changing it could be to get into the martial arts.
absolutely. Absolutely. It is life-changing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right, Mike. Before we go, if people want to know more about you, how can they find you?
I'm easily Googleable, Michael Gillespie. I'm a psychology professor at USF. You can find me that way. I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, and my book will pop up if you just Google Michael Gillespie distancing on Amazon. So I'm pretty easy to find.
Great. Well, again, Mike, I just want to thank you very much for allowing me to interview you today. I enjoyed this time we had. Hopefully, you'll come back again, like I said, in the future, and we'll have some more talks, and maybe we can get more into depth on what it was like back in the '60s and so on and so forth. I know we haven't been around that long in the
Right.
martial arts, but we picked things up along the way, and we
That's right.
learned from what it was like back then, and maybe we could discuss more of that in the future.
Yeah, that sounds great. That sounds great. Thanks a lot for having me. Had a lot of fun.
Make sure you look into Super Patch. It's great for boosting immunity, athletic performance, pain reduction, and much more. Visit mapap.superpatch.com to learn more. Thank you for joining us today. To learn more about us, visit our Substack at martialartspastandpresent.com. If you would like to support us, go to patreon.com/martialartspastandpresent. If you like the content and have not yet subscribed, you can find us on all of the major platforms such as Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube.